to keep an eye on the trends because and then I try to hide it a bit so it's not like, because my shirt's see-through.
Cool. I think it's good. So we'll check this out and start talking,
okay? Alright.
Ask me anything you need for help, yeah. Drink, food.
Okay. Shift that around. Let people get on into the room. I am all mic'd up now. How is everyone doing? Happy Sunday. Thank you for joining me for tonight's Dietitian Live. This is a very important topic that we're going to discuss. I hope you guys are doing well. Hope you had a great weekend. Before we get right into it, I'll let a few people come on in here. I wanted to mention I did just get done filming another video that will go up later this week. I filmed my fitness favorites video. I didn't realize I was going to have so much fun filming that one and have so much to share with you guys, but you can't hear me? But I had a lot of fun filming it. I've kind of found a lot of new things more recently that's helped me on my own fitness journey and just being really excited about fitness and just really enjoying it. So you judge my hair. I think you guys will quite like it is my point. So stay tuned for that video. The best way to know it's coming is to be subscribed to the channel. Post notification bell will notify you when I upload because I know I haven't been doing like a consistent day of the week. So that's just the best way to make sure that you guys don't miss a single video of mine. So welcome. Anyways, I just came off of that other video, so I didn't get to have like my notes all printed out in front of me, but I'm going to pull some things up on my phone. If you follow me over on Instagram, I posted it today, a couple little snippets so that if anyone wanted to look at things ahead of time, they could. So for today's topic, let me just scroll to the spot on my stories. Tap, tap, tap. Okay, so I kind of prefaced this on my stories today, kind of teased it a bit. The first thing I pulled was asking you guys here, should RDs help people lose pounds on the scale or avoid it completely? I had well, not a huge response, honestly. I didn't post it that long ago, but I had 153 people say yes, absolutely you should help. And then I had 16 people say to avoid it. So the split was 91% say yes, absolutely, 9% said avoid it. That's actually a pretty, that's pretty good feedback right there. Not the largest numbers for voters, but I'll be interested to see how that changes over the next 24 hours. Only posted that 6 hours ago. Then I posted just, again, a little preview saying that the Health at Every Size RDs are upset because there's these new guidelines that have come out right now. So the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, that's essentially like the governing body for dietitians. That's who we go to. That's who we rely on for information, you know, the most updated research. So they have what's called the evidence-based library. Jasmine's Rob, thank you for subscribing. So yeah, they're basically our go-to governing body, and they came out with updated guidelines on weight management. It's currently in a review period for RDs to comment on, to provide our feedback. So nothing's being done inappropriately right now. We are supposed to be providing our feedback. But I do follow, so I am not an extremist on one end or the other. In terms of the HAES movement and in terms of helping folks lose weight. I feel like I maybe lean more one side than the other, but I do still understand principles from the HAES point of view. I follow a lot of HAES dietitians, not to throw shade at them or mock them or use them as clickbait. I follow them to learn from. I follow them to open my eyes. I never want to be so closed-minded to how I'm practicing dietetics that I lose sight of other ways of doing things. So, anyways, one of the big leaders in HAES, I would say, had an email come out this week kind of going through a very well wrote email, really kind of going through why they were against it and hoping for others to support that and offer comments as in the opposition, if you will. And a very thorough email as to what they felt was not done well from the academy. So, Jay, are you going to change this back, or how do I see it normally?
Oh, you can't see the stuff?
Well,
that's because nobody else commented after that.
Okay. I just see myself on a delay, so it's a little awkward for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I see what you're saying. Open Streamlabs. Just open Streamlabs.
Okay.
I didn't reopen it, I'm sorry.
Sorry, guys, 1 second. That was just throwing me off. Thank you. 1 second. Just to note, Jason and I did a live on his channel prior to me filming a 45-minute video, so my throat's a little dry. So I'm going to take some sips here and there. Hope I don't lose my edge. All right, moving on. So yes, the email came out, and it just got me thinking that I wanted to talk about this topic, not to, again, throw shade one way or the other. I appreciate, number one, that the Academy updates the literature and the guidelines. I appreciate that they give a review period for dietitians to respond. I appreciate the insight from the HAES dietitians. And I just kind of wanted to chat through it all here today and get your feedback on some of this. I think, I don't know if the everyday public sees the divide in the dietitian community. I'm not sure if they do or not. I'm so in it that I see it, especially because I follow dietitians on both sides, that it's really prevalent for me and it really bothers me. It makes me feel like I don't know what my place is. And then at the same time, I remind myself that that's okay. Like this is because I'm not subscribing to putting myself into a tiny box for a sales tactic. I'm not saying that that's what they're doing, but I have to remind myself I don't need to do that. I need to just keep doing and practicing what I feel is in the best interest of the consumer, right? So, anyways, I wanted to get your input before we hopped into the guidelines. I want to review the guidelines for you guys, but also I put up a post asking what your thoughts are on RDs encouraging weight loss. I think many of you may be seeing this in the fitness industry. Let me know in the comments if you feel this or have you seen this, that it's kind of stigmatized now if you're trying to lose weight or help others lose weight. You know, tracking macros is looked at as very bad now too, I would say, from the HAES group. Maybe I'm generalizing, but that's the impression I get. Let me know if you're kind of seeing that divide on your social media or in your interactions, maybe in your everyday interactions. When I asked you guys about your thoughts on that, let's see. Nope. Shoot. Did I click something? Babe, I need help with my chat box back.
What's that?
I frigged up.
What'd you do?
I clicked something, so I can't see my chat box.
I probably can't bring it back.
Okay. I did what I did last time, I think, and you were able to cover it back up.
What'd you do that for?
I clicked to look at the chat, and I clicked the poll box, and that popped right up. Thanks. Oh, Bruce got all the cuddles earlier, Brittany. He was laying right in here with me for the entire video. I sat my little fat butt right on him. Just checking your comments real quick, but yeah, so just like the last thing I said was just curious if you're kind of seeing this divide. I respect and I appreciate the approach of understanding mental health and being focused on what's ultimately really important with that person. I just feel like saying that no one needs to focus on weight loss is a very confusing message. It's really confusing for me as a practitioner. I think it's confusing for consumers, and I don't necessarily agree with it, right? So I cannot say that I am a health at every size dietitian because I do not fall into their exact paradigm, although there are certain things that I do agree with. I really feel like that paradigm should be handled individually with each client. And I sometimes feel like some of their ideals come from more of like, I would place them more in a patient that has very extreme eating disorder, whether it's one extreme or the other, whether it's morbidly obese, extreme overeating, binge eating, underweight, you have it. I feel like it's in some ways a very extreme approach. So some of the pieces of health at every size I do subscribe to, but I can't necessarily get on board and say I'm a HAES practitioner because I am not there by any means. So you guys had some opinions on it. You know, one person said not being obese equals better health outcomes. That's an RD's job. You know, people feel like an RD's job is to promote overall health and longevity in healthy ranges for that person. And that's going to differ for everyone, right? So, you know, I work with a wide variety of patients or clients. I say patients because I work in a hospital, whatever terminology you want to use. But I handle everyone different. Some people, we don't focus on weight at all. Sometimes the client strictly wants to focus on weight and I have to pull them out of that mindset. Other times we do focus on the weight because they have major health issues. They're young, they have high blood pressure. It's hard for them to do things without getting winded. Yeah, we focus on weight loss, and I do not believe there's anything wrong with that, but we focus on it in a sustainable approach. You know, with a balanced approach, problems come with extreme views on either side. I totally agree. I have an RD here, Paris and Winston. I'm an RD and so excited to discuss this. I'm torn on the topic on a daily basis. RDs should encourage. They have the knowledge to do it in healthy ways. I agree. Let's see. Yep, great idea. Some people don't know where to start or what is healthy food anymore. I think that's something that pretty much stays true all the time. It's confusing with all the different messages out there. We don't know what healthy eating is, or we assume that healthy eating means exactly what one person deems it to mean. There is no set definition for healthy eating, so what may be healthy eating for one person is not healthy eating for another, and we quickly forget that as well. Someone says they feel that it all depends on the situation and the specific patient as an RD to be. I totally agree. If people are too delicate to hear they need to lose fat to be healthier, yeah, I think it's almost... I don't know that HAES agrees with using the term fat or obesity whatsoever. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on everything that HAES stands for. I have researched it a bit, but I'm not a HAES expert. So if anyone is from HAES or has that viewpoint and is coming here, I'm open to be educated on it as well, and I'm actively continuing to learn more about HAES. So I do always try to see all sides of things. I think if you're encouraging healthy habits, some weight loss will usually happen. Yes, I agree with that too. And that's why sometimes I don't focus on the number on the scale per se with a client. We focus on the healthy behaviors and healthy changes. And I think HAES believes in that as well, that is what you focus on, and you're You're not trying to help someone change their life and change their behaviors. You're just focusing on the number on the scale and using that as your measurement. And at times I agree with that, and other times I feel like the scale is a helpful tool. It is data we can use. Clearly BMI has limitations, so we're going to go into that as well. Yeah, shout out to Jay for being my tech support when he tells me not to touch buttons, and I still manage to touch them. Worst listener of the year right here. So the HAES group will actually argue, Louise Austin, they will argue that being overweight and obese is associated with health risks. So there is some definite conflict here. So I want to pull up the actual guidelines for you guys. I did link them in my stories, so if you happen to check them out, or if you want to check them out, or if you want me to pull them up here, I can. Sometimes I don't do well with multitasking, but I will do my best. So these can be found right through the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics evidence-based library. So what they do is come up with MNT, which is medical nutrition therapy, which is based on research, and they give guidelines, and that's somewhat what dietitians are taught. That's how they're taught in school. We're encouraged to come back to the evidence-based library to update our knowledge on evidence-based guidelines, best practice, right? So this is in regards to adult overweight and obesity treatment. All right, so these are specific recommendations for us to follow as clinicians. And like I said, this is currently in a review period. The way it works on the evidence-based library, they do number everything. They use a grading scale, so their recommendations are graded based on the strength of the recommendation in terms of the literature and what they've seen. So not every guideline is like a 10 out of 10, this is fully supported in research. So they do kind of allow you to see the limitations, where some guidance is more strongly represented in the science than others, if that makes sense. So some recommendations are weaker than others. It doesn't mean you shouldn't still consider them, but I think that's how they've set up the library so that people understand there are limitations with everything, right? We don't know everything, and it takes time to do research to fully understand things. And obesity is something that's still not fully, I don't want to say it's not fully understood, but I think there is still a lot that we continue to find out that impacts it. For example, gut health. This is not something that we talked about when I went through school. Unfortunately, I'm aging myself, but 15 years ago, that was not talked about as something that could be associated with obesity. So it is important to understand that research is ever changing, and there's going to be limitations here. But let's go through the guidelines a bit. So they came up with 13 key statements covering interventions that should be provided by a registered dietitian. Number one is MNT provided by RDs is recommended for adults with overweight or obesity to improve BMI. So I know HAES is like cringing that BMI is even being talked about or used. I think we can all agree, this is one thing, I think we can all come to terms with the fact that BMI is limited. BMI is not a good source of information. It gives you information, height to weight ratio, that is it. That's all that story tells. It's not a long story. It's black and white. There's nothing more to discuss. Your height, your weight, that's the number. Then you're classified. You're underweight. You are at a healthy weight. You are overweight. You are obese. You are morbidly obese, depending on the classification scale you use. I think we can come together as RDs and say that sucks. BMI sucks. Why does it still get used if it sucks so bad? Well, number one, it is such an easy tool to use, right? Height, weight, super easy to get. It can be reported by the patient or it can be actually taken at the time of the visit, but it's so easy to obtain that information, right? And so that's what's been used for years due to convenience. Due to convenience. I think we all know it sucks though. Is it still being used? Yes, based on convenience. I think it's unfortunate. I think we've seen that even something as small as adding in waist circumference tells a better story. You can have a beautiful BMI. All right, let's talk about it. How many men, sorry to call out the men, but how many men do we know that probably have a healthy weight because they have the skinny arms, the skinny little legs, but then they're all beer belly. We call that the beer belly, right? All adipose tissue all around the stomach, which is hard, typically visceral fat, meaning fat within the organs. That can actually cause hormonal changes. That's the worst kind of fat that we know of, is the visceral fat. So you can have a super healthy BMI, good to go as a clinician. Yep, BMI is healthy. My job here is done. No, it's not. Let's talk about the waist circumference. If you measure that man's waist circumference or woman, I know plenty of women's, I know grammar and how to talk. I know plenty of women who also have that same build. So we have to look at where the fat distribution is, right? And understand what the actual health risks are associated with that. And so while I appreciate that HAES is like, they're using research based on BMI, that's so out of date, blah, blah, blah. That is unfortunately a lot of what the research looks at, because if you're gonna do a large study, right, where you're tracking weight, hear me out, a large sample size, 2,000 plus people tracking their weight, their intake over time, one of the easiest ways to have data to look at is BMI, because it's height and weight. When you talk about going into body fat percentage, that's not as easy of a measurement to obtain. I still think it's easy. I'm not fighting it. I don't support BMI. I'm just saying, let's like think things through here and think about it from all sides. BMI is just easier to obtain. So if you're talking about a large sample size of people who you're trying to get information from for a study, doing it that way versus having everyone need to do underwater weighing or the bod pod, bioelectrical impedance, everything does have its limitations. Gold standard, you know, would be probably an MRI of the full body showing the actual distribution of what's fat, muscle, bone, etc. It's not practical, it's expensive, So I'm just giving you a little background of why BMI is still used. I think as RDs, HAES or not HAES, yeah, I think we can all come together on that subject that it sucks. But the sentence goes on. So as RDs, we are recommended for adults with overweight or obesity to improve BMI, percent weight loss, waist circumference, blood pressure, and quality of life. Okay? I don't know how you argue that sentence. Number 2, we should collaborate with a multidisciplinary team of health professionals to provide care when appropriate and desired by the client. And that's a big one, because a lot of helping people achieve health outcomes is more than the scale. Again, I'm not HAES and I agree with that. We have to work with a whole team. That is where we have to maybe bring in a psychologist or a psychiatrist, depending on what's going on, depending on what someone's gone through in their life that have caused them to be where they are. Because some of that stuff maybe needs to get worked through first, or in addition to working with your dietitian. You may need a social worker. There's all different members of the team. You may need a nurse. You may need all different types of people to work together with you, because you're a whole person. And it's no different than what you and I do for our own selves. When we're trying to feel better, do you just do one thing to feel better? No, you do multiple things. You go to the gym, you make sure you get enough sleep, you try to eat good, you do your yoga maybe, you go and get chiropractic done, you go and get massages. You do multiple things that hopefully at the end of the week make you feel good like one person. So the same is true with treatment and with being a dietitian. We have to know when to refer out and reach out to other people. I have no issues with that statement. Number 3, for adults with overweight or obesity, RDNs may provide at least 5 interactive sessions when feasible and desired by the client to achieve the greatest potential improvement in outcomes. Frequency of contacts should be tailored to the client's preferences and needs. So this one is stating, based on the research they've looked at, it's needed to have at least 5 interactive sessions to really help someone have positive desired outcomes. I don't know about you guys. For those of you that have met with a dietitian before, how many sessions you've had. I would say that to be true. I've met with clients where 1 to 2, it's definitely not enough. They're probably going to fall off. I think for the most part, the consistency with support is going to help improve those positive outcomes. I think we have seen that. So at least 5 interactive sessions. I don't have any issues with that. I agree with that. I would say if I was seeing people live in person, I would probably not spend the time to work with anyone if they weren't willing to pay upfront for 5 sessions, because I would know that anything less than that, we're not going to get anywhere. I think people still think we can do that little magic wand. I'm an RD, so here's your prescription, here's the magic answers, and it doesn't work like that. There's so much more we have to dive into, and maybe need to pull in more team players as well to help work through things, so at least 5 sessions. Okay, moving on. Next, we should provide overweight and obesity treatment interventions for at least 1 year to improve and optimize cardiometabolic outcomes. Again, I don't disagree with that. I think at least 1 year is accurate. It is hard. I've worked with people where, I do online coaching, and if I work with someone for 3 months, people always have very large goals, and I never want to kind of get their hope, they have their hopes up, and I don't want to let them down, but at the same time we have to be realistic about what I can do with someone in 3 months to help you sustain something for the rest of your life. Usually we're just scratching the surface at 3 months, quite honestly, because it takes so much back and forth, and not every week or every day is perfect, so there's a little give and take there. I agree, at least a year. Don't have issues with that. Let's see. For adults who receive overweight and obesity treatment, we should provide follow-up contact at least every 3 months for as long as desired by the client to maintain improvements in cardiometabolic outcomes. I don't disagree with that either. That frequent outreach, reaching out to them at least every 3 months. And again, they're noting in here as desired by the client, which indicates to me this is going to be an individualized approach based on what the client needs. And some people need more than that. Some people need more frequency with their interactions. So we're keeping it individualized. Perfect. Next up, we may provide MNT using telehealth. I'm glad they've incorporated that in here now, since much of the field in the world has gone to telehealth due to the pandemic. In person or a blend of delivery methods to improve anthropometric outcomes. Anthropometrics, again, body weight we're talking about here, body fat, things of that nature. Outcomes may be optimized by including in-person MNT contacts. Okay. Next up, we may provide interventions for both individual and group delivery methods. So I know some of this you're kind of like, what's the issue here? Some of these I have no issues so far. We may provide delivery methods that are individualized or in a group atmosphere. So this is just providing the standards. For me as a dietitian, if I'm helping people with weight management, which is what I do actually, and I do have my certification in adult weight management, so you can say I'm biased because I've kind of been associated on the weight management side for most of my career, but I kind of feel like that's what I went to school for. But these are the guidelines I should be looking at, reviewing, commenting on, because these should be my standard for how I'm practicing in my practice, right? Okay, next up, I think this is the one where it gets a little shitty for HAES. So RDNs should include the following components as part of a comprehensive multi-component intervention to improve anthropometric outcomes, blood pressure, and quality of life. And the 2 bullet points here are a reduced calorie diet, they don't like that, as well as behavioral strategies, including self-monitoring, diet, physical activity, and weight. Again, they don't like it. That is my understanding. If you are a HAES person, please let me know otherwise, but that is my interpretation. Reducing calories, no. Self-monitoring, no. So I'm kind of like, Joey Justice just entered the room like, Mom, what you getting so upset about? Yeah, those they're not big fans of. Good boy, Justice. Good boy. So, and we can read through some of their response to that, but very much anti-focusing on reduction in calories and the self-monitoring. Again, it's not for everyone. Are there ways to help folks lose weight without reducing calories? Yes, there are, but it's still going to take some level of monitoring. It's hard to lose weight without reducing calories. If you're not reducing calories, the expenditure has to change somehow. So maybe you're upping the expenditure one way or another. Sure, there's also those scenarios where people have other medical comorbidities that maybe alter this scenario. But oftentimes I am generalizing here. The back life, I totally agree with you. I think it also does definitely depend on where you're at with your own relationship to your body and your health. You know, where are you at with things? I know for me personally, after a long period of time of bodybuilding, I had to stop tracking. I had to just stop. I had to stop tracking, and I gained weight. I did. I stopped tracking. I gained weight. I didn't get to an unhealthy amount of weight, but I had to just kind of let myself be. I would not say this is an all-in approach. That's a whole other video, and again, not really a recognized approach in the world of nutrition and dietetics. But I had to just let my body self-regulate. I had to learn how to trust my body again. And with that came some weight gain. And then, yeah, things did eventually level out. And I had to take some time off of all the numbers because I was coming from an extreme situation of years of bodybuilding, of different dieting techniques and things that really just screwed with my relationship with food. I allowed it to screw with my relationship with food. So I had to reset. That was me. At that time, I wouldn't have been someone that could focus on the number of the scale. I wouldn't have been someone that could track everything I was eating. It was making me miserable. So I wouldn't have been effective. So I had to back off. I had to just focus more on, you know, learning my body again and starting from basics. So that's just one example. I've been that example, but I'm not that example for the rest of my life, all right? That was a period of time where I was coming off an extreme situation. My body was very sensitive to everything. I was sensitive to everything. It was wild. So everyone's unique. What situation are you in right now? Where did you come from and where are you going? In integrative nutrition, we look at the whole person from the moment you were in your mother's belly to where you are now. It's a timeline of events that shape you in all areas of your life. So this is why I'm anti-saying you have to do one approach or the other. You can't help people lose weight. No, you can. And then sometimes you shouldn't help people lose weight. I agree. Sometimes that should not be the focus. And they might think it's the focus, and then it's your job to help show them why it's not the focus. All right? So a certain person is going to need certain things. So I go back to what I see in these guidelines, and that is telling me an individualized approach based on the client need. I see nothing wrong with that here. All right, here's where it gets dicey again for HAES. We have adults with overweight or obesity should prescribe a diet individualized to client preferences and health status to achieve and maintain nutrient adequacy and reduce caloric intake based on one of the following caloric reduction strategies to improve BMI, percent weight loss, and waist circumference without significant adverse effects. So again, they're basically saying HAES is not liking these statements because, again, we're using BMI as an indicator. But when you look at the whole statement, they're not only using BMI as an indicator. And it's not to say you can't use BMI, okay? BMI has limitations. You can use it, though, as a tool as long as you use all the other things, all right? As long as you look at all the other things. In addition to that, which is what this is saying, you're also looking at waist circumference, you're looking at percent weight loss. Yeah, it's not mentioning you're looking at bone density and you're looking at water weight and you're looking at muscle mass. These are things I would look at. These are things I would encourage a client to look at. I know enough to take it a step further. And if my client has access to, and if my client is willing to assess those data points, then we would do that. But guess what? Not everyone has access to have their body fat tested. So as much as we don't want to ignore these societal standards and issues that we have going on in the world, you know, we can't just make it perfect because not everyone has access to everything. I think we understand that. I agree. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, according to HAES. So, all right, moving on. Let's talk about, the approaches they want you to use. All right, this is where it really pisses them off. And let me know how you feel when I say these numbers, okay? Listen up. First bullet point with helping someone to improve their BMI, the percent weight loss, the waist circumference, yada yada. First bullet point is a 1,200 to 1,500 calorie per day for women and 1,500 to 1,800 calorie per day for men. In parentheses, calorie levels should be adjusted for the individual client's body weight, activity level, and preference. So I'd like to know how you feel with that statement because that shit pissed off HAES, okay? How dare you say a severe reduction such as 1,200 to 1,500? Listen up. I'm going to be honest with you. As much as I don't like 1,200 calories, would I lose weight at 1,200 calories? I don't know. I haven't done that in a minute. But I will tell you I have done extreme dieting and it has been below that number. And 1,200 calories, I'm not sitting here saying that's what everyone should be eating. I know it's this number that is very polarizing to people. 1,200 calories is not necessarily starving someone. So let's give that shit up, all right? I'm kind of sick of hearing that. Again, from the dietitians who probably eat freaking 1,200 calories, they're the ones out there saying, you know, you should be eating croissants every meal and having pizza for dinner. And it's just, the vision is just, I struggle so much with all of this and finding how we come back as one. I just feel like that number can be really polarizing for people, but you have to understand they're also indicating these calories should and will be adjusted for the individual client based on their body weight. I will not have a client who's 300 pounds and prescribe them a 1,500 calorie diet. Never will I ever. I will not do that. But you do have to consider each person. Where they're at, where they're going. Like I said, it could be appropriate for some people. And I think it gets a little bit mucky, if you will, when we act like no one should ever eat that low of calories. No woman should be on 1,500 calories. Well, I come from a very small family, one side of my family is very petite build, which is where I get my build from genetically, very short in stature, and just very small overall. And when you are a smaller person, oftentimes you do not require as much metabolically. It varies. It varies if you're a very tiny gymnast or if you're a very tiny karakori at my age and activity level. It's different for everyone. But I guess that one just didn't hit me as hard as it hit HAES. Bullet point number 2 is prescribing an energy deficit of approximately 500 to 750 calories per day. Okay, that comes from the science. If you reduce your current diet by 500 to 750 calories per day, you should see anywhere of a pound to a half a pound to a pound and a half weight loss per week. I don't really prescribe that as much. I kind of focus more, sometimes I do. I don't really get that nitty gritty with the numbers where I have people counting calories like that. It's more so, let's take a look at your week. Can we cut out the whole milk chai from Starbucks every day? And in my mind, I know doing so, we're probably cutting out 300 calories or so. I use behavioral strategies like that with my clients. I'm still not cringing at the recommendations because it is what can work, and I do understand that. I just wanted to read a couple comments because I saw Danielle was adding some info. HAES is about taking the focus off of weight as an indicator of health and to allow marginalized individuals to get their medical help without always prescribing weight loss as the cure for everything. And I agree with that. I definitely do agree with that, though. Weight loss isn't the cure for everything. It definitely isn't. But I find it hard to say that you should never focus on weight loss. Does anyone else struggle with that? It could just be me. I could be old school. I agree, Cassandra. I think the parentheses is really important. I think, I don't know, in a way we have to understand to do guidelines for this. They have to be fairly general for for practitioners. And that's part of what we go to school for, is the parentheses kind of stuff. Like, that's what makes each and every dietitian's toolbox unique, because that's the parentheses kind of stuff, is really getting in the nitty gritty and learning how to help people with where they're at. So it's not a one size fits all approach, which I think is hard with these guidelines. The last bullet point there is evidence-based diets that replace high energy dense foods with low energy dense foods. I mean, Again, I don't have an issue with that. I think it's problem solving with a particular client if that's the methodology that works best for them. Everyone's unique and different. Danielle writes, as an RD-to-B, we're taught to use ranges to calculate estimated needs, so it's odd to see a number range and it's not personalized. Yeah, I don't know what drew them to actually give those specific calorie recommendations for people. I don't even think, I kind of agree that line isn't necessary. If they could just keep it more general, that this is the proper way to go about doing an estimation of calories, and that to assist someone in weight loss, you would want to go from here to here, maybe in a solo method that's more sustainable. So, and that maybe would be a good comment that I would agree to with HAES, that none of that is listed there. So, good point. Next one here is that we should advise adults that the target reduction in calorie level, all right, let me say this again. For RDs working with adults with overweight or obesity, that if the target reduction in calorie level is achieved, okay, many different dietary approaches are effective for overweight and obesity treatment. I guess I don't really know where that one's going. We should advise adults that if the target reduction in calorie level is achieved, many different dietary approaches are effective. Okay, I feel neutral about that statement. I'm not really understanding the purpose on that one. The next one says, for adults with overweight or obesity, it is reasonable for RDNs to individualize weight loss goals based on individual preferences and needs. Like that, as little as 3 to 5% weight loss may result in cardiometabolic health benefits, while a weight loss goal of 10% may be appropriate for adults with obesity or comorbidities. And again, there's the research to support that one. That one is a 1B. If I go back up to the numbering system, a 1 is strongly evidence-based, and A to D. So A is high, D is very low. So this one is higher ranked on the evidence-based in terms of research to support 3 to 5% weight loss can really help in cardiometabolic indicators. I've seen that a lot for folks with high blood pressure. We're not looking for you to get down to your high school weight. That's unrealistic. Throw that shit out. But something as small as 3% weight loss could possibly get you off your hypertension medication, okay? So that's where it's a struggle for me, for certain individuals to not help with weight loss. You can help them via other means without tracking weight and focusing on the number on the scale, but is that going to be effective for everyone? Is everyone going to respond to that process? Another RD here, HAES is a very fine line and controversial to me. For any of my RD to Bs, is this even being talked about in academics? That's my question. I would imagine that it is because it's such a big part of our field, but definitely this was not a concept that was around when I went through school. So I'm just kind of curious how this is being handled right now with new RDs. Okay. One more here. For adults with overweight or obesity, it's suggested that RDNs or international equivalents. All right, this one's really going to get you. For adults with overweight or obesity, it is suggested that RDNs or international equivalents, meaning if you're not called an RDN in another country, not use a health at every size or non-diet approach to improve BMI and other cardiometabolic outcomes or quality of life. So that one threw shade real hard, put it out there. Like, we are here to tell you the health at every size approach or non-diet approach is not appropriate for folks who are indicated to be overweight or obese. So once you get down to that last bullet point, that's 4.6, that one stings. That one really got him at the end. So these were developed based on the evidence from the Adult Weight Management Systematic Review. All right, so curious your thoughts on all those. So like I said, I do follow Alyssa Rumsey. I suggest you follow her too. She's very smart. I've purchased her entrepreneur class from her. I have nothing against her. She's super knowledgeable. So she's a strong HAES advocate. So she did send out this email to her email listserv, which I happen to be on, which got me thinking about talking about this topic because she had formulated this whole long email. I shared a snippet of it on IG stories, requesting that RDs kind of shut this shit down, basically. And I still see some things from both sides. Even after reading that through, I do see things from both sides. What feels wrong to me is how extremely divided we are. So I see a lot of people that do understand both sides, which is why I feel like I'm putting myself out there when I talk about this, because I'm just waiting for all the HAES RDs to come for me. But it's hard to be out here in this field right now and to not be one side or the other and to kind of want to meet in the middle. And it feels like, for whatever reason, we can't do that. And I don't know how we're going to get through this. And if we can't get along as clinicians in terms of appropriate mechanisms of how to work with people, then how much more confused are consumers going to be? Like, we've confused consumers enough, right? Between sexy marketing and advertising, and now we don't even know who's qualified to give meal plans and nutrition advice. Like, it gets more and more confusing, right? And now within our own field, instead of coming together in a time where we really should come together with social media, where plenty of people who did not have to go through the amount of schooling and sciences that we did are capitalizing and gaining probably more clients and making way more money than dietitians. No shade, I'm kudos to you. Instead of us coming together to be like, what? Like, pause the brakes here. Like, we are the dietitians. We are the nutrition experts. This is what we do. These are all the different specialties we do. Do you need a more HAES approach because of X, Y, and Z? You go here. Do you need, and come together. Instead, it's just like, nope, nope. And I'm not a nope kind of gal. I'm a Libra, all right? I'm a people pleaser. I'm a Libra. I can't make decisions sometimes. And I see things all over the place. Like, that's who I am as a person. So it's just a very challenging time. And that email just really kind of hit home to me with how divided we are. And it makes me curious how confused consumers are. Rosie says, I always thought that weight loss aids the body in being healthy. It's always beneficial in some way, right? I mean, it depends. For some people, they don't need to lose weight, you know? So if you're already, depending on where you're at, you may not need to lose weight. Sometimes weight loss adds stress to the body too. So I do see it from both sides. But if you're someone who's overweight or obese, I think it's something that should be looked at. If the client's open to it. Amanda says, I think the vast majority of people in these movements have struggled with food and their weight. I haven't, and I only pursue weight loss pursued weight loss postpartum. Me wanting to go back to my weight before isn't bad. Absolutely not. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's a good point, Amanda. I could be wrong, but I feel like a lot of the HAES dietitians all have talked about their diagnosed eating disorders. All right, like I've seen a lot of that, and I'm a full disclosure kind of gal as well. I've spoke openly about, like I said, after bodybuilding, I struggled for a while. I was like, I didn't know how to eat anymore. When you go from starvation mode for months and months and months, binge eating and not knowing how to eat and good or bad foods, yeah, for me personally, it ended up screwing with me for a bit. But, you know, it's different than, I don't know, maybe it's not different. I feel like I've used that experience to better understand some of the extremes are out there. I don't ever try to push my own ways of doing things on someone else, because just because I experienced one thing, I dealt with it a certain way, and I'm where I am right now, which is fantastic. It doesn't mean that I'm going to have someone come to me that had the same experience and I'm going to just tell them what I did. It doesn't work like that. Everyone is so different. So in some ways, I feel like the HAES dietitians are a lot of, I could get crucified for this one, but I just feel like they are a lot of former, I'm stepping on my puppy, former eating disorders. I don't know if that's part of where the extremist of it comes from. So maybe someone who has struggled with an eating disorder needs that extreme approach where they are not doing any of that kind of self-monitoring. But I just don't think it's one size fits all for everyone. Kara Cash would love to hear how the webinar was on HAES. Yeah, I'm just not sure how much was really discussed about HAES in school. Danielle said a lot of her schooling was focused on weight loss centered. I didn't have that experience. Interestingly enough, I felt like a lot of my schooling was more focused on medical nutrition therapy for disease states. I felt very confident with tube feedings, TPN. I felt very confident handling different diagnoses, whether it's kidney failure, diabetes, all different types of medical issues, and then multiple medical issues combined with it. I felt like that was more our focus throughout my program, was like, here's your client, they have 17 different things wrong with them, what do you do? So those types of case studies. And then there was also the focus on nutrition counseling came at the very end. You know, how do you work with people? How do you talk to people? I even went so far in my master's degree to take a multicultural counseling class outside of the nutrition department. It was very eye-opening in terms of cultural bias and how we work with people. I think that should have been part of the RD program I was in, but very siloed in academics, and that wasn't part of it. Very grateful that I took that class, pushed me outside of my comfort zone at a young age. But glad I did. I'm very glad I did, because I've worked with every different kind of person, I feel like, on the face of earth. And I would love anyone to know that even though I am what's looked at as a thin, privileged white female, that you can come to me and feel comfortable with no bias and no judgment to help handle and care for your health if that's what you're looking to do. Anyways, I didn't have the weight loss experience, though, I guess was my point. It wasn't super weight loss focused whatsoever. I did dabble in some sports nutrition classes, and we did a bit more of that in sports nutrition, quite honestly. Yep. So Kara, I agree. So that's the great thing about HAES is they focus just more on the healthy habits, and that when you establish those healthy habits, the weight loss likely will happen. And that is an approach that I do use with a lot of my clients who are way too focused on the numbers and see one number and get panicked and it ruins their day. So that's the thing. I like that approach. I use that approach with certain people, but not with everyone. In a clinical setting, you're going to have a hard time with that. I think, here's the thing, the way we practice in healthcare, if you go to a hospital, there's certain requirements that we have to do. And as a dietitian, I don't think that would fly with a surveyor, that you're going to focus on a non-diet healthy habits approach. It's just not how healthcare works right now. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying when you bring it to a setting such as that, when we're not talking private practice, when we're talking in a clinical setting, dialysis center, trauma center, acute level, number one trauma center, long-term geriatric care, you name it, you're going to run into issues if your dietitians are not addressing weight and obesity and cardiometabolic risks. So that one's a little sticky for me too. If you're a hardcore HAES dietitian, how is that working in that kind of setting? That's a big hurdle right there. So yeah, let me see if there's anything else from that email I want to bring up. I appreciate you guys listening to me go on and bring some light to this topic. This is something I'm very passionate about in the world of dietetics. This divide drives me nuts, you know. I don't know. It's unfortunate, really. Oh, it's actually open. Excuse me, it's open for public comments, the guidelines I went through. So I'm sorry, I thought they were just for dietitians. It's open for public comments. So if you're someone that felt some kind of way or want to comment as the general public, I think that's great. I think the more feedback they get, the better. So go for it. Basically, with the HAES group, they say the guidelines are full of it and perpetuate an anti-fat bias and weight stigma. They use poor quality evidence to back their recommendations. They use faulty science to say that dietitians should not use HAES. They omitted the vast amount of research that speaks to the limitations of BMI. They mischaracterized the HAES paradigm. They recommend disordered eating behaviors, including severe calorie restriction, which we know does not work in the long term for the vast majority of people and contributes to weight cycling, which, as weight stigma, is an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease, diabetes, chronic inflammation, and much more. Oh yeah, and there's clear conflicts of interest, they state, with their systematic research for the guidelines being funded by the Weight Management Dietetic Practice Group. And they're stating in there one of the 6 work group members has had their research funded by Weight Watchers. So I don't know the validity to that. I'm literally just reading a statement. So I don't feel like I can speak to that unless I really did find that to be true. I can say I do feel like the world of dietetics is quite small. Like, you can find stuff out pretty easily, so I don't see why that would be misinformation. So always sketchy, always good to know anytime any guidelines come out. I've said that on this channel before with other videos I've talked about, like understanding the research and the guidelines is also understanding the governing body and how they are funded, right? Everyone's funded, where's the money coming from, and is there a business purpose to putting out there a certain guideline in terms of the money that it brings in collaborative relationships. Politics, right? Kind of politics, kind of sketchy. I don't know. I can't speak to that, quite honestly, but eye-opening. She also listed some articles from other HAES dietitians to look into. They said this is a very clear power grab by the academy, which is feeling threatened by the rise in providers who are providing weight-inclusive care. Follow the money. Think of all the academy stands to lose if they stop recommending weight loss interventions. The academy is stuck in the past, unwilling and outright refusing to acknowledge or even consider the evolving research that is clearly showing the myriad of positive benefits of weight-inclusive care and the harmful outcomes of weight loss interventions. And she shares she felt defensive too, like her livelihood was being threatened when she first learned about this. And it goes on. So it's a very thorough, well-written email, gets your mind thinking. I do recommend Alyssa Rumsey to check her out. If you are an RD, she gives a different perspective on things in the field. So, and she is very well established in the field. So check her out if you kind of want more information on that. Like I said, my feed is full of all kinds of dietitians. It keeps my mind active and thinking about things I could be doing better. Really interested to hear your thoughts, especially from RDs as this topic continues to go on. Was there anything in those guidelines that made you feel like, what the heck? The calorie recommendations maybe, although they did parenthesize that to say individualize that based on the individual, the person, right? So, but yes, okay, so I think that's the end of my spiel. I'm gonna look through comments real quick. The puppy is right below me. I keep thinking it's Bruce and I'm kicking him. He takes after Bruce Wayne, it's so funny. And take a picture of him quick. A little bit glary, but current situation. A little pup down there. Okay. Yeah, so same. So like, I think a big thing I've dealt with is working with people, maybe probably more so my bodybuilding background, right? So binge eating disorder and really working with those types of issues and how to work through those. I'm sorry, but really the bulk of what I learned on that was refer out, like work with them. But once you hit eating disorder status, be connecting, doing referrals with other people in the community, setting them up with a treatment plan. It's not like we really like dove deep into how to really help someone out of it. Do you see what I'm saying? So, I don't know. Academics isn't perfect, right? Like that's why we are required to continue to learn as RDs. 75 credits every 5 years. We have to submit a portfolio with our goals, and then the actual continuing education that we do has to correspond with our learning goals. And that's why we have to continue to educate ourselves, because stuff changes. So Sabrina appreciates my balanced approach on educating on this topic. If you guys want to know more about this topic, please let me know. Like I said, HAES is something I continue to try to educate myself more on, and as well as weight management principles. I do try to stay up to date with that as well, because a lot of people do come to me because they want to lose weight, whether it be for health reasons, whether it be due to just wanting to perform better in the gym. There's different reasons there. It's not always just about being skinnier. It's not always coming from a disordered place. I think sometimes that's what it feels like. Like it's always, if you want to lose weight, you're disordered. If you want to track macros, you're disordered. If you want to track your workouts, you're disordered. If you want to look at how many calories you burned on the treadmill, you're disordered. It's just so extreme. It's icky. Like I just want to get out of here. The ick, it's everywhere right now. Ugh. It's like Jimmy Fallon. Ugh. It's just gross. So anyways, that's my thoughts on it. Take that for what you want. That's my approach. Maybe that sounds good to you. Maybe you think I'm a POS. I don't know. But those are my thoughts. I wanted to talk about it. But yeah, I think we're going to wrap up here, guys. I hope you enjoyed tonight's chat. A lot of me rambling on. I hope, if nothing, it brought some insight into the world of dietetics, the world of weight loss and weight management, and maybe you'll kind of keep your eyes and ears open about things maybe you're hearing or seeing on social media. And all I can say is, I feel like Julie Chen at the end of an episode of Big Brother. Be kind to everyone. Love one another. Julie Chen Moonves signing out. Like, I just want to give that message. Like, let's just be kind to one another, you know? But I do appreciate, let's not take things for face value either. And that's not what she's doing. She's like, I'm not going to take this at face value. We need to kind of tease through some of this BS in here. I don't see anything wrong with that. I do think we should speak up. I don't think we should ever take anything for face value, regardless of who's telling it to us. You should always advocate to better understand information, understand where it's coming from, understand if there's, you know, like a business attached to it, if there's a financial gain attached to it, all that kind of stuff. So all great stuff to think about. We did leave a poll here if you guys would prefer these live talks a different day of the week. I'm not sure if Sunday at 5 p.m. is the best time to gather you guys here to come hang out with me. So I'm more than willing to take feedback if there's another time that works best for you. So be sure to hit up the poll if those dates or times work better for you. Always open to feedback on future live topics. You can leave it in the comments section after this video is posted, or actually you can leave it now. Or always feel free to hit me up on Instagram as well. But be sure you guys are subscribed. I have my fitness favorite video coming this week, which I think you'll really enjoy. And that's it, guys. Have an amazing Sunday. And bye. I don't know. I suck at signing off of here.